Uranium is having a good fall, with the sector up strongly in September. Bellwether Chemical is up 36% in the past month, while the gold miners index is just up 5%. So what's driving the metal? And where's it headed from here? Thomas Lamb is CEO of Myriad Uranium, which is focused on uranium projects in Wyoming. Thomas, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Let's step back first as well to what's happening in the uranium space.
Uranium is hot. There are a few other elements or minerals that are doing well, vanadium and a few others, but uranium has really just been the best over the last few years. I think and many of your viewers know that it's risen from about $30 a pound a few years ago to just over $80 a pound, and it's the place to be right now.
What is some of the key developments that have happened over that past 2 years? Because we had the Sprott Uranium Trust that came in. Yeah. We also had news out of the stands as well too. What do you think has been really pivotal in terms of actually driving uranium over these past 2 years?
Well, really, we'd have to look back 12 years, 14 years to Fukushima. Maybe we'll talk a bit more about that. But that incident and then the resulting turn away from uranium and uranium exploration and development is basically the chickens are coming home to roost now. There's just a shortage of uranium and demand is going up. Developments include a lot of large nuclear power plant construction in China. There is it's been the end of this program called Megatons to Megawatts. This is downblending nuclear weapons. This is a result of the eroding of civil stockpiles. There used to be inventories of uranium that were available. Those have been eroded, and just a lack of new production coming on stream. And there's a lot more detail we can get into, but those are some of the factors.
So it's just been the classical commodity story, whereas you've had the prices have been just too low, it's been uneconomic to develop any projects. Because I think that we kind of saw uranium bumping around $30 after Fukushima for several years right now as well too. So we're just kind of at this point that we're just kind of catching up. So I mean, talk about the supply picture right now. What is there?
Yeah, well, there are two contexts that are relevant to our company especially, but just to generally, the biggest market is the United States. Mm-hmm. The US consumes 40 million pounds of uranium a year for its civil nuclear program, this is reactors and other uses, but mostly nuclear reactors. Then, of course, there's military on top. Mm-hmm. So that is the United States. Then worldwide, 160, 180 million pounds a year is current consumption, but production is lower than that. In the United States, again, consumes 40 million pounds a year, or its nuclear reactor fleet consumes 40 million pounds a year, but produces 2 years ago only 200,000 pounds. Mm-hmm. And this year and next, maybe just over 2 million pounds. So massive production shortfall if you are looking just in the US. So it has to import the difference. Globally, there's also a really big production deficit. There's currently a production deficit of tens of millions of pounds a year. And this is going to grow. There's actually a cumulative supply deficit projected, this is by Cantor Fitzgerald, the US bank, between now, 2024, and 2040, I believe it was forecast at 1.29 billion pounds cumulative production shortfall between now and 2040, with no solution in sight. We could talk about that, but this is nobody knows how this is going to be addressed. People are, prices. We can talk about price. What's going to happen? The prices too, but they're going to move. They have to. There's just no supply available that people can forecast.
Talk about nuclear power. Nuclear power sector's recent performance has been checkered. Britain's Hinkley Point C cost 1/3 more to build, $50 billion. We see Georgia's Vogel, which was 7 years late, $17 billion over cost. Wind, solar, energy storage systems, we continue to see the prices that are falling there.
Yeah.
They're also quicker permitting, building times. What's the argument for nuclear you would make?
Well, the thing about nuclear is that it provides stable baseload. The alternative wind, solar, et cetera, they can be cheap and efficient when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing. And of course, you need to store up that power as it's generated. And then, if you want stable baseload, uranium is still cheapest, and of course, it's zero carbon too. That's the main argument for nuclear. And then we have something coming on. It's been big in the news the last few months, and it's just going to grow. It's a giant wave that is coming, and this is artificial intelligence, data centers, big tech. They need stable power for decades to run their data centers and the AI that's being built out. The only answer is nuclear, and that is coming. And this is the projections that I just mentioned, production deficit, et cetera, barely take into account, and they're all being revised. Barely take the sort of the needs of big data, like AI tech, and those estimates and forecasts are being revised in light of what's coming. So you see now Microsoft and Constellation just signed a deal to restart one of the reactors at 3 Mile Island. This is the 3 Mile Island that had an incident in 1979. Microsoft is paying big money, and in fact is paying higher than market price for the electricity just to secure the stable supply. And it's going to build a big data center next to the 3 Mile Island plant in Pennsylvania. So, this is all happening. If you want stable base load, you need nuclear. On top of that, all the rich countries have agreed that the way to fight climate change, it includes nuclear. The solution includes nuclear. It's near zero carbon emissions, and all these rich countries have agreed to build out nuclear. You just mentioned what I think you're alluding to is cost overruns. It's very expensive in the West to build nuclear reactors. We do have a serious problem here. We're going to be focusing on restarting old reactors and extending the life of existing reactors. Instead of switching them off at 60 years, we're going to run them for 100 years. And that is instead of building new reactors. We're going to try to build new reactors in the West. Some countries are going to have an easier time than others. It's a difficult and long process in the United States, in particular, Canada too. Whereas China, China's a great example. They have teams that are building reactors like cookie cutter, in a cookie cutter process. And they get better and better with each, and more efficient with each reactor they build. They're building the exact same type of reactor. And they have dozens and dozens of reactors planned. So China and Russia also is building and servicing reactors, and they've got their models. The rest of the world actually is going to leapfrog us in terms of reactor construction and then, of course, uranium demand. Very interesting situation, actually. But that's how we're going to address the cost overrun issue and the time issue, time to construction issue, is we're going to extend the life of existing reactors and then, switch reactors back on that are still permitted.
I want to talk a bit more about that government support for the uranium sector. You did mention China as well, too, which is having a big build out with nuclear power plants. There was the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed just over 2 years ago. Components of that bill has been providing support to critical mineral industries, looking towards energy transition, and also had a chips component to it as well. Mm-hmm. Can you talk about the support that you've seen from the Inflation Reduction Act and how that has actually helped the North American uranium sector?
Well, it's helped in two ways. First of all, psychological. We now know the government of the United States and the states, but in particular the federal government, on a bipartisan basis, are behind nuclear. And there's some geopolitics here. As I mentioned, U.S. requires 40 million pounds and growing for its domestic reactor fleet. Per year, they need 40 million pounds, but U.S. is currently only producing 2. So a lot of the fuel, actually finished fuel, the fuel rods, et cetera, come from Russia, out of St. Petersburg. Get into that later if we like. But we now know the uranium sector, the other parts of the fuel chain, the fuel cycle, the uranium fuel cycle. This is to turn uranium into reactor fuel. U.S. government is alive to the geopolitical risks. They've decided that they want a secure domestic supply, not just of uranium, but of conversion and fuel rod manufacture, et cetera. And so politically, with the Inflation Reduction Act, we know that the government bipartisan basis is that is the goal. Get domestic production from 2 million to back up to 40 million, do it inside the United States. Also, the other parts of the fuel cycle are going to be supported. The first steps, and this is sort of real impact, is tax credits. So the Inflation Reduction Act includes tax credits and then other incentives so that energy companies and utilities will extend the life of reactors. They're subsidizing on a multiple dollars, $15, $30, I think it's $15 a megawatt, incenting utilities to extend the life of reactors or restart old reactors, et cetera. So there are tax credits available, additional incentives for utilities to and technology companies to get involved in small modular reactors, alternative nuclear technologies. All that is being supported with tax credits. And then also you can choose tax credit or you can choose some alternative support. If, for example, you're not producing electricity for a while, but you're just investing in it, you can get some tax advantages from investing in it. So that actually, these are real. This is real money that's the federal government is effectively deploying to support the nuclear sector. That helps. That lifts all boats in the United States. All the way down to explorers like Myriad.
Yeah, well, let's get into Myriad. You're situated in Wyoming right now, and I believe that you're advancing the Copper Mountain, and that was a brownfield site.
Exactly. So Myriad is a CSE listed company, but we also have a ticker in the United States, OTC, and on Frankfurt. Myriad has a 75% earnable interest in this Copper Mountain Uranium Project that you mentioned. It's turned out to be a barn burner of a project, better than we expected. So about a year and 2 months ago, we pivoted. We were exploring for uranium in West Africa. And we pivoted to Wyoming with Inflation Reduction Act, uranium moving up, and understanding that Wyoming in particular, well, United States, but Wyoming in particular is going to be the center of the action globally when it comes to uranium. Because the U.S., we knew that governments want to support the sector inside the U.S. Yes, there is a lot of uranium in Athabasca and Saskatchewan, but it's not in the United States. And there are issues around Athabasca uranium, fabulous projects there, obviously. But so we knew we wanted to be in the United States, and Wyoming is the best. Copper Mountain was a Union Pacific Railway project in the 1970s. The project area itself, project area that we hold with our partners, Rush Rare Metals, project area has seen quite a bit of past production. There are 2 Cold War era uranium mines at Copper Mountain that are of significance. One is Bonanza. Our data shows it produced 780,000 pounds at 1.3%. And this would be in the 50s and 60s, 1950s, 1960s. And then the Arrowhead Mine produced 500,000 pounds at 0.15%, according to our historical data. Union Pacific stepped into this Cold War brownfield site in the 1970s and decided, in partnership with California Edison, that they would advance the area, explore it, and see if they could build a large-scale conventional uranium mine to support the fleet of Edison reactors that were planned for California in the 1980s. They never got built because of the aforementioned 3 Mile Island. But Union Pacific held our project in the 1970s, and they spent 117 million Canadian on our project drilling 2,000 boreholes. That's 117 million in today's dollars. 2,000 boreholes, and they estimated resource for their mine planning purposes of between 15 and 30 million pounds of uranium. That's at our project. They also estimated, this is based on their 2,000 boreholes and the other work that they've done, they estimated the potential of the project to be over 65 million pounds. That includes known deposits and prospects, which they'd advanced, but never quite got to because of the 3 Mile Island incident in 1979. So our project, brownfield site, significant Cold War era production, significant historical resource, and they had a mine plan. As of 1978-79, Union Pacific, or their subsidiary Rocky Mountain Energy, had planned to build a 6-pit mine at Copper Mountain in order to fuel those California Edison reactors. 1979, 3 Mile Island incident occurred. Uranium prices were already a little bit weakening a little bit, but they just really started to fall. By 1982, the U.S. uranium sector had melted away, and our project, which very likely would be an operating large-scale uranium mine today, just was shut down, remediated, and and we are the first group to consolidate ownership of it since 1982. In the intervening period, Anaconda, that's ARCO, and Neutron Energy, which is now Encore Energy, and then a predecessor to Strathmore. Those 3 companies, Strathmore, the original Strathmore, Neutron, which is now Encore, and ARCO, each of those companies had part of our license area in the intervening period, could never quite consolidate ownership. And then in 2012, Strathmore and Neutron, which each had part of our property, they both ended up melting away after Fukushima, and the prices dropped. So we're the first group to consolidate this area. It's brownfield, seen a huge amount of historical production. It's very interesting. And we are drilling it right now as we speak. We've got 3 drills, 2 diamond drills and 1 RC drill currently drilling one of the deposits, the main deposit there.
Are you funded?
We are fully funded at the moment. Yesterday, we just completed the 3rd tranche of a $5 million fundraise. And we exceeded our target. We raised a total of 5.9 million, which we just closed the last tranche yesterday. So we're in very good financial shape. We have a very exciting project in Copper Mountain. It's good.
There's a lot of mining in Wyoming,
Correct.
correct?
Wyoming. Now, the last I checked, so there's a lot of mining, but in particular uranium. It's America's historic center of the uranium sector in the United States. 4 out of the 5 operating uranium mines in the United States currently are in Wyoming. That was as of several months ago. And it is the center of America's uranium sector. So it's the place to be. Yep.
Let's talk about M&A in the uranium sector as well. Sure. So, swinging over to the gold side, we've seen a lot of momentum, obviously, because of spiking gold prices. Uranium has been doing well as well too. Yeah. But the other tailwind has just been all of the M&A that we've seen in the space. But help me understand what you see as potential uranium takeouts. Who are the players? What can happen in M&A? I think the most recent was Uranium Energy. They purchased Rio Tinto's Wyoming assets for $175 million.
Very interesting deal. Mm-hmm. Very interesting deal. So that was $175 million for 175 million pounds of uranium, plus the Sweetwater Mill, which is in sort of south central Wyoming. The Sweetwater Mill is in the center of lots of really good uranium ground. Mm-hmm. It's near the Lost Creek project, which is 50 million plus pounds of uranium. There's UEC, UR Energy, Rio Tinto, all around the Sweetwater Mill, and some other companies, GTI, maybe their symbol is GTR. But this deal is very interesting. So half of the 175 million pounds, I believe, is ISR, in situ recovery, amenable pounds, and the other half would probably have to be mined conventionally. That in itself is kind of interesting. The deal to get the mill, very interesting. Owning the mill, controlling the mill, that's going to be more and more important. There are very few uranium mills permitted or that could be restarted in the United States. That's one of them. There's another in Utah and just a few others. This is starting. This is kickstarting M&A. You see it with other deals. There's small ones that are sort of less widely known, and it's very exciting for us. So generally, the sector we think is going to hot up, as I like to say. So we mentioned the price of uranium. Its current spot price is, give or take, $83 in the spot. The long-term contracting price of uranium is roughly that too, in that same. But, and remember, we're in October, Cantor Fitzgerald estimates that the spot price of uranium is going to rise to $110 a pound by the end of this year. That's only a few months. So amazing. I thought, okay, well, Cantor, maybe they're, you have a really kind of excitable analyst, but that's not it. He was a really smart guy, and these guys are conservative. Bank of America just put out a few days ago an estimate of $105 a pound. So this is 110 Cantor, $105 a pound uranium spot by the end of this year. We only have part of October and then November, December. This is going to drive M&A. People in the business like myself and fellow CEOs, we're talking all the time. We know the price is very likely to rise significantly. There are lots of exciting deals to be done in the space right now. You're going to see mills, people trying to get access to mills, pounds in the ground, pounds in the right areas, right places with the right, that are amenable to the right extraction methods. You've got people thinking about what to do about Saskatchewan. You've got NextGen, ISO, Canalaska's been drilling some amazing intercepts there. All of that stuff is going to have to get picked up by. Now, who's going to go after Saskatchewan? We have Cameco and other big projects there, but there's NextGen. They're just under 10 billion market cap. Canalaska, other companies. Those, if Cameco doesn't buy them, or Orano, or I don't know who else would. Maybe you're going to see utilities buy these big uranium stockpiles and develop them decades from now, or tech companies. That there's going to be all sorts of M&A that's going to come out of left field. It's going to really surprise people. Could you have OpenAI go and buy a $10 billion worth of uranium in terms of market cap? Interesting questions coming up, especially with Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan produces 43% of the world's uranium right now, but it's having lots of problems. It has an acid shortage. It's Kazatom problem. The state producer has got kind of a Russia problem. Russia owns part of some of the big projects there and has gotten into management and defenestrated a bunch of senior management there. Kazakhstan has problems. That's going to focus everybody on North America, U.S. in particular, Saskatchewan, and there's going to be M&A like crazy to sort everything out. People need secure supply, tech companies, utilities. So it's going to really drive M&A. Those are some comments around it. God, we could talk about it for hours.
Thomas, let's just close with Myriad. You said that you have some drills that are running right now, and then you are fully funded. Talk about the next 12 months. What are going to be some potential catalysts? What are some news that you're going to be having on?
We're going to be drilling for the next month. We're going to drill a lot more holes. Everybody, please stay tuned for our results as they come out. And then we are going to be planning 2025. That is going to involve a lot of drilling at our project at Copper Mountain. We have, as I mentioned, we have a big historical resource. So we're going to be doing the work to bring the resource current and also, we hope, go well beyond it. So everything is sort of focused on that. And we're going to do it in a, look at the project and plan for future production, because we're going to, it's a brownfield site. It was going to be a mine in late 78, 79. The plans were to turn it into a mine. So we're going to explore it. We're going to look at best ways to produce from the project. And, that's going to drive what we're doing. Drilling now, We're going to be raising money in the future at some point to fund a big program next year, a lot of drilling. It's going to be exciting times. You know, we also think the uranium market's going to heat up in a big way. M&A, stay tuned for that. That's always possible when you've got a project like ours with a big historical resource. 2,000 boreholes. Union Pacific did the work. It's high quality work. That was the foundation for those estimates. That means we're an exciting company.
Thomas, thanks for your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
My name is Michael McRae. You're watching Kitco Mining.